We're cutting you loose. Your company card is canceled. Figure out how to get home yourself, loser. I read that text message 3 times, standing in the lobby of the Royal York Hotel in Toronto. The marble floor under my boots felt more solid than anything else in my life right then. My boss's words glowed on that little screen like a neon sign advertising my worthlessness. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't curse. I just stood there while business people walked past me speaking different languages and dragging their luggage, living their normal lives while mine was ending. I typed back slowly, "Thank you for letting me know." Then I sat down on a leather bench near the entrance and tried to figure out how a 49-year-old man with 22 years of experience could suddenly be worth nothing. My name is Curtis Brennan. Most people call me Kurt. I've been in the construction equipment business since I was 27, back when you could still get hired based on knowing your stuff instead of having the right degree. I started at Morrison Heavy Equipment as a junior procurement assistant making $28,000 a year. Worked my way up by learning every bolt, hydraulic line, and engine specification on every piece of machinery we dealt with. By the time this story happened, I was their senior procurement specialist for international operations, pulling down $87,000 annually. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up sitting in that hotel lobby in Canada with $43 in my wallet and a text message that basically said I was garbage. Morrison Heavy Equipment supplied construction machinery across the upper Midwest. We were the go-to guys for excavators, bulldozers, cranes, anything you needed to move dirt or build something big. We had contracts with road departments in 6 states, mining operations in Minnesota's Iron Range, and commercial builders from Milwaukee to Fargo. I wasn't just a buyer. I was the guy who knew which hydraulic pump worked best in Minnesota winters, which tracks held up on rocky terrain, and most importantly, which suppliers you could trust when a job site was waiting and money was bleeding. My boss was Wesley Holden, 36 years old, Harvard MBA, the kind of guy who could tell you the quarterly profit margins, but couldn't tell you the difference between a track loader and a wheel loader. He got promoted to VP of Operations 18 months ago after our previous VP retired. I still don't know how Wesley got the job. The man had never been on a construction site in his life. His previous experience was 3 years at a consulting firm in Boston, helping companies optimize their operational efficiency. But he was good at presentations, good at saying the right things to the board, good at making everything sound like it was his idea. Wesley's insecurity about his lack of field experience showed up as arrogance toward anyone who actually knew the business. He'd sit in meetings talking about leveraging synergies and maximizing throughput, while the rest of us tried to figure out what that meant in terms of getting a broken excavator back to work. Wesley liked to remind me where I came from. "You're valuable, Kurt," he'd say when I'd ask for time off to take my son Tommy to a baseball game. "But don't forget, there are plenty of people with MBAs who could learn your job." I'd nod and say, "I understand." What else could I do? I had a mortgage on a house in Bloomington, a truck payment on my Ford F-150, and a 16-year-old kid who wanted to go to college. The irony was that Wesley couldn't do my job if his life depended on it. In 2008, during the recession, I'd watched good men with 20-year careers get laid off while companies struggled to survive. I'd seen what happened when you lost everything you'd built. That experience never left me. It made me careful, maybe too careful about rocking the boat. The problem started 6 weeks ago. Our main supplier of specialized excavators in Canada, McLeod Equipment Manufacturing, was threatening to cut ties with us. They'd been our exclusive supplier for cold weather equipment for 8 years, providing machines that could operate reliably in sub-zero temperatures that would shut down equipment from bigger manufacturers. Why were they threatening to leave? Wesley had been treating them like they were disposable. Over the past year, he'd been demanding faster delivery, pushing for lower prices, never asking if what he wanted was actually possible, just demanding. When Owen McLeod, the company's owner, would try to explain the realities of manufacturing specialized equipment in small-town Ontario, Wesley would interrupt with comments about scaling efficiency and market pressures. The final straw came when Wesley tried to renegotiate their contract via email, demanding a 15% price reduction and delivery times that were physically impossible. "Owen called me directly, Kurt," he said, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. "I've been making equipment for 30 years. My father started this business in 1965. We've never missed a delivery date, never shipped faulty equipment, never broken our word. But this new boss of yours treats us like we're some factory in China that he can push around." I spent 2 hours on the phone with Owen that day, listening to his concerns, taking notes about what wasn't working. Owen was 61 years old with hands like tree roots and a reputation for building the finest cold weather excavators in North America. His equipment was working on pipeline projects in Alaska, mining operations in northern Canada, road construction across the upper Midwest. When you needed an excavator that could dig through frozen ground at 40 below, you called McLeod. Fix this, Wesley told me one Tuesday morning when I briefed him on Owen's concerns. You're good with these supplier relationships. Go up there and smooth things over. I spent a week putting together a proposal that made sense for everyone. Better payment terms for McLeod, realistic delivery schedules, guaranteed minimum orders so Owen could plan his production around our needs. Things that would work for both companies and preserve a relationship that had been profitable for nearly a decade. Wesley barely looked at my 12-page proposal. Just go there, he said, barely glancing up from his laptop. Go to Canada and fix this in person. However long it takes. How long are we talking about? I asked. 3 weeks, maybe a month, you'll figure it out. A month? I said. Tommy's got his championship tournament coming up. I promised him I'd be there. Wesley finally looked up from his screen. Your son has other family, doesn't he? Friends? Figure it out, Kurt. This is your job. My wife Sarah looked worried when I told her. We were sitting at the kitchen table after dinner, Tommy upstairs doing homework. A month, she said, lowering her voice. That's the longest you've ever been away. I know, but this McLeod contract is huge. If we lose them, Morrison loses maybe 40% of our Northern Territory business. What about Tommy's tournament? I felt something twist in my chest. Tommy had been working toward this baseball tournament all season. He was a pitcher, a good one, and college scouts were supposed to be at the championship game. I'll try to be back for it, I said, knowing I probably wouldn't. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He'll understand, she said, but he shouldn't have to. I flew to Toronto on a Monday morning in early October. The company had booked me into the Royal York Hotel. Nothing fancy but decent. Historic building, good location, reasonable rates. I rented a Ford Explorer and drove 2 hours north to Owen's facility the next day. It wasn't in the city. Owen's plant was in a small town called Whitmore, population 3,200, where everybody knew everybody, where the local diner served coffee that could strip paint, and the mechanic shop stayed open late because farmers needed their equipment fixed before harvest. McLeod Equipment Manufacturing sat on 15 acres outside town, a collection of metal buildings that had grown organically over the decades as the business expanded. The main assembly building was the size of an airplane hangar. Through the open bay doors, I could see workers assembling the massive frames that would become excavators capable of working in conditions that would kill machines from bigger manufacturers. Owen McLeod was 61 years old with hands like tree roots and gray hair. He kept short under a worn baseball cap advertising Caterpillar equipment. His wife, Fiona, ran the business side of things from an office that overlooked the assembly floor. She was the one who dealt with contracts and payments and kept track of which customers paid on time. Smart woman, tougher than most of the men I dealt with in construction, and that was saying something. Tell me what's really going on, Owen said when we sat down in his office that first day. The office was functional, not fancy. Metal desk, filing cabinets, a coffee pot that looked like it had been making coffee since the Carter administration. The walls were covered with photos of McLeod equipment working on job sites across North America. Excavators digging through permafrost in Alaska. Road construction crews using McLeod machines to clear snow-packed highways in northern Canada. Mining operations where the temperature hit 50 below and other equipment couldn't even start. Wesley doesn't understand how your business works, I said honestly. He's treating you like you're some big corporation instead of a family business that builds quality equipment to order. And what do you think? Fiona asked. She was sitting behind her desk with a cup of coffee, watching me carefully. I think you make the best cold-weather excavators I've ever seen, and Morrison would be stupid to lose you as a supplier. Owen nodded slowly. Your predecessor understood that. Jim Morrison, the founder's son. We worked with him for 15 years before he retired. Never had a problem. Jim knew that quality takes time, that relationships matter more than spreadsheets. Wesley's different, I said. Wesley's an idiot, Fiona said bluntly. Sorry, but it's true. Last month he sent us an email demanding we reduce our prices by 15% with no explanation, no negotiation, just a demand. Like we're Walmart or something. We talked for 4 hours that first day, not just about contracts and delivery schedules, but about the equipment itself. Owen showed me modifications they'd made to hydraulic systems that let their machines operate in temperatures that would shut down other excavators. Special seals that stayed flexible at 40 below, hydraulic fluid that didn't thicken when other fluids turned to syrup, heating elements built into critical components to prevent ice formation. Fiona explained how their production schedules worked around seasonal demands and the reality of finding skilled welders and machinists in small-town Ontario. We're not Ford, she said. We can't just hire 100 people and pump out machines on an assembly line. Every excavator is built by hand by guys who've been doing this for 20 years. How many machines do you build a year? I asked. About 120, Owen said. Could we build more? Sure, if we hired more people, expanded the facility, changed how we do things. But then we wouldn't be MacLeod equipment anymore. We'd be just another manufacturer trying to compete on price instead of quality. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned things about equipment manufacturing that 22 years in procurement had never taught me. I spent time on the assembly floor watching welders join steel plates that would form the frames of excavators designed to work in the harshest conditions on Earth. I watched machinists fabricate hydraulic components to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. I saw quality control processes that involved testing every major component before it went into a machine. Owen started insisting on something unusual during our second week of negotiations. "I want you to be the contact person for this contract," he said. "Not Wesley, not anyone else, you. I don't make those kinds of decisions." I said, "Then we'll write the contract so you do," Fiona said firmly. "Every order goes through you. Every change has to be approved by you. Otherwise we don't have a deal. But what if I'm not available? What if I'm traveling, or sick, or then we wait?" Owen said. "We've been burned before by companies that promised one thing and delivered another. The only way this works is if we deal with someone we trust." At the time, I thought it was just because they liked working with me better than Wesley. I didn't understand what Owen was really doing. He was protecting what we were building together from corporate politics and MBA arrogance. Back in Minnesota, Wesley was getting impatient. He'd email me at weird hours asking when the contract would be signed and why it was taking so long. I'd explain that building trust takes time, that rushing would ruin everything, that Owen and Fiona needed to feel confident about Morrison's commitment to the relationship. Wesley's responses got shorter and more irritated. "I don't need excuses. I need results. How hard is it to get a signature? This should have been wrapped up in a week." One afternoon during my third week in Canada, Wesley insisted on joining one of my video calls with Owen and Fiona. I tried to talk him out of it, knowing it would be a disaster, but he overruled me. It was worse than I expected. Wesley interrupted constantly, made jokes about Canadian healthcare that didn't land, and talked to Owen like he was stupid. When Owen tried to explain why certain delivery schedules were unrealistic, Wesley cut him off with comments about operational efficiency and scalable solutions. After Wesley left the call, Owen sat quietly for a long moment. Then he said, "That man doesn't respect anyone but himself." "I'm sorry," I said. "He doesn't understand. Don't apologize for him." Fiona interrupted. "You're not responsible for his behavior, but I work for him. For now," Owen said quietly. Meanwhile, back home, Tommy was having the season of his life. Sarah sent me videos of his games via text message. In one, he struck out 12 batters in a 7-inning game. In another, he pitched a complete game shutout to send his team to the regional championship. College scouts from 3 different universities had called Sarah asking about his grades and his plans after high school. "Dad, you should see these scouts," Tommy said during one of our nightly phone calls. "They're taking notes every time I throw a pitch." "That's amazing, son. I'm proud of you. Are you going to make it back for the championship?" I looked out the window of my hotel room at the Canadian countryside. The leaves were changing colors, fall coming early this far north. "I'm trying, Tommy. I really am. Coach says there are going to be scouts from 5 colleges there, including Minnesota State. Minnesota State was where Tommy dreamed of going. Good baseball program, engineering school, close enough to home that we could watch his games. I'll do everything I can to be there," I said, knowing it probably wasn't true. Finally, after 3 weeks of negotiations, meetings, and relationship building, we had everything ready. A complete partnership agreement worth $18 million over 2 years. Enough specialized excavators to supply Morrison's entire northern territory, and then some Owen's family would get steady, predictable income. Morrison would get equipment that would work reliably in the harshest conditions. Everyone would win. The contract was 47 pages long, covering everything from delivery schedules to warranty terms to the specific modifications required for sub-zero operations. But the most important clause was buried on page 23. All purchase orders, delivery schedules, and contract modifications must be approved by Curtis Brennan or his designated successor. The signing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Owen wanted to do it properly with his whole family present. His son was flying in from Vancouver, where he worked as an engineer for a mining company. His daughter was driving up from Toronto, where she taught mechanical engineering at the University of Toronto. It meant something to them, this contract. It represented security, continuity, the future of a business that had been in their family for 3 generations. I was proud of what I'd built. Actually proud. For the first time in months, I felt like I'd accomplished something that mattered. Something bigger than just processing purchase orders and managing vendor relationships. That Wednesday evening, I was in the hotel lobby checking my email on my laptop when my phone buzzed. Tommy had sent me a video from practice. He was working on his curveball, and the coach was giving him pointers on his grip. Dad, check this out, his text message said. Coach thinks I might get a full scholarship if I keep improving. I watched the video 3 times. Tommy looked so much older than when I'd left. 3 weeks felt like 3 months. I typed back, "You're looking great, son. Can't wait to watch you pitch in the championship." That's when Wesley's message appeared. "We're cutting you loose. Your company card is canceled. Figure out how to get home yourself, loser." My hand stopped working. I read it again, then again. No explanation, no warning, just those words appearing on my phone screen like a digital punch to the gut. I checked my card immediately. He wasn't lying. It had been canceled. My return flight was booked for next Monday using the company's travel account. I didn't know if that was canceled too. I was stranded in a foreign country. After 3 weeks of work, after missing Tommy's biggest games, after eating McDonald's and Tim Hortons to save the company money, after building something that would make Morrison millions of dollars, Wesley had called me a loser. The hotel lobby suddenly felt enormous and empty. Business travelers walked past speaking French and English, dragging their wheeled luggage, living their normal lives while mine was ending. An elderly couple was checking in at the front desk, talking about visiting their grandchildren in Montreal. A group of construction workers in hard hats and safety vests were heading to the bar after a long day on some Toronto job site. I sat on that leather bench for maybe an hour, maybe more. People walked past. Hotel staff glanced at me sometimes, but didn't say anything. I kept thinking about Sarah, about Tommy, about how I'd have to call my brother Barry and ask him to wire me money just to get home. The humiliation felt almost as bad as Wesley's message. I checked my bank account on my phone, $1,247 in checking, $4,300 in savings. Enough to get home, but it would wipe out our emergency fund, the money we'd saved in case something like this happened. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then something changed inside me, not anger exactly, something colder, something more calculating. I looked at my briefcase sitting beside me on the bench. Inside was the unsigned contract, the one worth $18 million over 2 years, the one that would supply Morrison's entire Northern Territory with specialized equipment, the one that Owen McLeod would only sign with me personally. I stood up. I walked out of that hotel into the cool October evening, found my rental car in the parking garage and drove north toward Whitmore one last time. It was almost 9 p.m. by the time I reached Owen's facility. The main buildings were dark, but lights were still on in the office. I could see Owen and Fiona through the window, working late, probably reviewing the contract one final time before tomorrow's signing. They looked up, surprised, when I knocked on the office door. "Kurt," Owen said, opening the door, "is everything all right? You look." "They fired me," I said. The words came out flat, matter of fact. "Wesley sent a message this evening, said they're cutting me loose, canceled my company card, told me to find my own way home." Fiona's hand went to her mouth. Owen's face went hard, the kind of hard that comes from 30 years of dealing with corporate people who think small businesses are expendable. "After everything," he said quietly, "after 3 weeks, after you worked so hard to make this partnership work, yes, what did you do?" Fiona asked. What reason did they give? No reason. Just that text message. Owen and Fiona looked at each other. They had one of those conversations that married people can have without saying a word, 35 years of marriage compressed into a glance and a slight nod. "Where are you staying tonight?" Fiona asked. "The hotel. I have enough cash for maybe 2 more nights, then I'll figure something out." "You'll stay here," Owen said firmly. "We have a guest room upstairs. Sarah doesn't need to worry about you being alone in some hotel room right now." "The signing tomorrow," I said. "What do you want to do about it?" That's when I realized something. Owen wasn't asking if the signing would happen. He was asking what I wanted to happen. "What do you mean?" I asked. "This contract," he said, walking over to his desk and picking up the thick document we'd spent 3 weeks perfecting. "It's written with your name as the primary contact and approval authority. Morrison has to deal with you personally to get our equipment. That was your idea, remember? You said it would ensure continuity, but I don't work there anymore." "Exactly," Owen said. "So why would I sign with them?" The weight of what he was saying hit me like a hydraulic press. The contract wasn't just about me being a contact person. It was legally binding. Owen had insisted on language that made me the required point person for the entire partnership. Without me, there was no deal. "They'll send someone else," I said. "They'll try to renegotiate." "Let them try," Owen said. "I won't talk to them. My family won't talk to them. We built this partnership with you, not with some MBA who thinks he can push people around." "But what about Summit Construction Solutions?" I asked. "The company that's been calling you." Owen's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but something sharper. "Summit's been trying to get our equipment for 18 months. Better terms than Morrison ever offered. Better payment schedules. More respect for what we do. We always said no because we had an understanding with Morrison. Had Fiona emphasized, "You'd really walk away from $18 million? The money isn't walking away," Fiona said gently. "It's just walking to someone who deserves it. Someone who treats people properly." I felt something loosening in my chest, like a bolt that had been over-tightened for years, finally backing off. "There's something else," Owen said. "Summit called me last week asking if I knew anyone who could handle their international procurement, someone who understands heavy equipment and supplier relationships, someone with connections across the industry." He paused. "I have someone in mind now." He meant me. Owen McLeod, who built the finest cold-weather excavators in North America, wanted to recommend me to Summit Construction Solutions. "I can't," I said automatically. "I need to get home. I need to find another job. I need to take care of my family. You need to stop letting people treat you like you're worthless." Owen said firmly, "This man throws you away like garbage after you built something valuable for his company, and you want to rush home and let someone else do the same thing." "I have responsibilities," I said. "Tommy's championship game is this weekend. Sarah's been handling everything alone for 3 weeks." "This isn't about running away from your family," Fiona said. "This is about building something better for them." I looked at the unsigned contract in Owen's hands. 3 weeks of my life, 3 weeks away from Tommy's biggest games. All those conversations, all those negotiations, all that trust I'd built, and Wesley had called me a loser and cut me loose via text message. What would I need to do? I asked quietly. "Tonight, nothing," Owen said. "Stay here, get some rest. Tomorrow morning, I'll call Summit. I'll tell them Morrison is no longer an option and introduce them to you. Then I'll call Wesley and explain that there will be no signing." "He'll be furious," I said. "Good," Owen replied simply. "Maybe he'll learn something about how to treat people, though I doubt it." I stayed in their guest room that night. It was small and comfortable, with a quilt Fiona's mother had made and a window that looked out over the assembly floor. Fiona brought me coffee and homemade sandwiches. She sat with me while I ate, not saying much, just being present while I tried to process what had happened. My father used to say something, she told me finally. "When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Your boss showed you who he is tonight. Don't give him a second chance to prove it." I thought about that all night. About all the times Wesley had shown me exactly who he was and how I'd ignored it because I needed the job, because I was scared of the 2008 recession happening again, because I thought I didn't have choices. The next morning, Owen made his calls. First, he called Patricia Wells at Summit Construction Solutions. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was enough. "Yes, this is Owen McLeod from McLeod Equipment Manufacturing. We spoke last month about a potential partnership. Is that still something you're interested in? Good, I have someone you should meet. He's the best procurement specialist I've worked with in 30 years. He's the reason Morrison wanted to work with us."
Now he's available? Then he called Wesley?
I sat there in Owen's office while he put the phone on speaker. My hands were shaking slightly, but I tried to keep my face calm. Wesley answered on the second ring, his voice bright and confident. "Owen, finally. I've been trying to reach you. Are we all set for this morning? My team is excited to finalize this partnership." "No," Owen said quietly. "We're not all set." Silence on the line. I could almost hear Wesley's brain trying to process what he'd just heard. "What do you mean?" Wesley's voice changed, got tighter, more controlled. "I mean, there will be no signing today. No agreement. McLeod Equipment will not be working with Morrison Heavy Equipment." "Is this about money?" "Because we can discuss terms. I'm sure we can reach an accommodation that works for everyone." "This is about respect," Owen interrupted. "Something you seem to struggle with. Now wait just a minute. I don't know what Kurt has told you, but he's no longer with the company. His opinions don't represent Morrison's position." "He told me you fired him," Owen said, "after he spent 3 weeks here building something good for both our companies. After he worked harder than anyone I've seen to make this partnership successful, you threw him away like he means nothing." "That's an internal personnel matter," Wesley said, his MBA training kicking in. "It has nothing to do with our business arrangement with McLeod Equipment." "It has everything to do with it," Owen said firmly. "Kurt was our arrangement. We negotiated with him. We built trust with him. We don't trust you. So there is no arrangement. You can't do this. We have a verbal agreement. We have documentation. We have nothing," Owen said. "And now I'm going to work with Summit Construction Solutions instead. They've been asking us for 18 months to be their exclusive supplier. We said no because we were loyal to Morrison, but Morrison clearly isn't loyal to the people who make things work." The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Wesley's voice came back, desperate now. "Owen, let's not be hasty here. I'm sure we can work this out. What if I flew up there this afternoon? We could discuss this face to face." "Don't bother," Owen said and hung up. I just stared at him. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode through my chest. "Did you just—" I started. "Yes," Owen said calmly. "I did. Now let's talk about your future." Summit Construction Solutions wanted to meet me that afternoon. Owen arranged everything. They sent a corporate car with a professional driver. After 3 weeks of rental cars and economy hotels, it felt surreal. The Summit headquarters was in downtown Toronto, glass and steel and marble, the kind of place where deals worth hundreds of millions got made every day. I felt out of place in my work clothes, but the receptionist treated me like I belonged there. Patricia Wells, Summit CEO, met me personally. She was maybe 45, sharp business suit, the kind of confidence that comes from building something successful from scratch. "Owen speaks very highly of you," she said after we shook hands. "Tell me about yourself." I told her everything. Not the sanitized professional version you give in job interviews, but the real version about Tommy and his baseball dreams. About working at Morrison for 22 years, building relationships with suppliers because I actually cared about the work. About being stranded in Canada yesterday and choosing to be here today instead of begging for a plane ticket home. "Why are you here instead of on your way back to Minnesota?" she asked. "Because Owen made me realize something." I said, "I'm good at what I do, really good, and I'm tired of working for people who can't see that." Patricia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen in weeks. "Owen said you negotiated an $18 million agreement. Is that accurate?" "Yes. Every detail, from delivery schedules to cold weather specifications to warranty terms." "Can you do that again for us?" "Yes," I said, and for the first time in months, I meant it completely. The offer Patricia made was more than I'd ever imagined. VP of International Procurement, $135,000 base salary, plus performance bonuses that could double that. Company vehicle, full benefits, stock options. And most importantly, a schedule that would let me fly home every other weekend to watch Tommy pitch. "I need to get home first," I said. "See my family, explain what's happening, watch my son's championship game. Then I can start." "We'll arrange your flight today," Patricia said. "When you're ready to return, we'll cover everything. Apartment, transportation, whatever you need to be successful." The flight home was the longest 3 hours of my life. I kept thinking about Tommy, about his championship game tomorrow, about how I was going to explain that everything had changed but somehow gotten better. Sarah picked me up at Minneapolis-St. Paul International. One look at my face and she knew something fundamental had shifted. "What happened?" she asked as we drove through the early evening traffic. I told her everything, the firing, Owen's loyalty, Summit's offer, the new life we could build. She listened without interrupting, occasionally glancing at me like she was seeing someone she'd never met before. "So you just walked away from 22 years and landed something better?" "I didn't walk away," I said. "They threw me away. I just made sure they couldn't benefit from what I'd built." Tommy was in his room when I got home, reviewing game film on his laptop, preparing for tomorrow's championship. When he saw me, he jumped up and wrapped me in a hug that reminded me why none of the corporate politics mattered. "Dad, you made it back. I promised I would," I said, "and I have some news. I'm never going to miss another one of your games." The next day, Tommy pitched the game of his life. 7 innings, 14 strikeouts, 1 walk. We won 3-1, and 3 different college scouts approached us afterward. The University of Minnesota offered him a full scholarship on the spot. Standing on that field, watching Tommy celebrate with his teammates while college coaches lined up to talk to him, I thought about Wesley Holden sitting in his office in Minneapolis, probably trying to figure out how to explain to his board why Morrison had just lost their biggest supplier and their most experienced procurement specialist in the same week. 6 months later, Morrison Heavy Equipment was acquired by a larger competitor after losing most of their Northern Territory contracts. Wesley was let go during the transition. Last I heard, he was working for a small regional firm at about half his old salary. I didn't celebrate when I found out. I just felt a quiet satisfaction, like a perfectly calibrated torque wrench clicking into place. Today, Tommy's a sophomore at Minnesota, studying engineering and pitching for a team that made the College World Series last year. I'm still with Summit, where we've built the most successful equipment procurement operation in the upper Midwest. Owen McLeod retired last year and handed the business over to his son, but we still talk every month. Sometimes people ask me if I have any regrets about walking away from Morrison. The answer is simple: you can't walk away from something that throws you out first. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is someone showing you exactly how little they value what you bring to the table. When that happens, don't try to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it. Find people who already understand what you're capable of and build something better with them. That's not revenge, that's just good business sense. And sometimes, if you're lucky, those two things look exactly the same. So here's what I learned from being stranded in that Toronto hotel lobby with $43 in my wallet and a text message calling me a loser. Your worth isn't determined by people who don't understand your value. Don't waste time trying to convince them otherwise. Find the people who already know what you're worth and build something incredible together. The best revenge against those who underestimate you isn't destruction, It's success they can't ignore. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, when someone shows you they don't value what you bring, believe them the first time and go somewhere that does.